You are listening to Radio Maria Canada. We now present the Health Hub, hosted by Kathy Biasi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Health Hub. I'm Kathy Biasta, your host, and along with our producer, Alex Diaz, we would like to welcome you to our show this morning. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning, Kathy. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Pretty good.
Excellent.
Keeping
Spring
well.
is in the air. It was a beautiful weekend.
I must say, for the second time in about 3 weeks, I missed my recycling day just because I've lost track of the amount of days that have gone past in the week, and
it's hard to keep track. It's hard to keep track of the days. I guess you have shows that are on particular days. Yeah. Mine is, I'm not that scheduled, so you're ahead of me with that. I know that Tuesdays we're recording, and then the rest is just sort of filling in. I'm doing this program and this and that. And so there are days when I look up and I think, is it Saturday? Is it Wednesday?
Yeah.
It's
thankfully my job allows me to keep track of what day it is for the most part, except when it comes to my garbage.
That's selective thinking. That's on purpose.
I suppose so, until you look outside in the morning and you're like, oh, right, I missed my window. That's all right then.
It's a sign of the times. It's a sign of the times. Not to worry. It's here. Well, we've got my daughter's doing really well with her schedule, and I've got another daughter doing her thing, and my husband is back and forth to his office. So it kind of leaves me here, sort of floating around from place to place, trying to, like right now, I'm recording in my bedroom, so I land here because it's the quietest place in the house. But we all accommodate, and I think that we just have to give ourselves, a little bit of pat on the back and cut ourselves some slack because, we've been thrown into a new normal so fast. I think, honestly, everyone's adjusting really well.
I think so too.
I'm proud of people, I think, when I'm looking at things and some great shows on and people coming together, it makes me proud.
It is very great that we're able to connect this way. Just thinking back, COVID-19 has really put things in perspective for me. In terms of, for me, it's like I'm used to being able to do things on the go and exactly when I want to do it and how I want to do it. But then this has really given me that step back approach of being patient and let things happen as they happen, right? So
there will definitely, when we look back, you're right. When we look back, I think that there are going to be a lot of silver linings to this. We've had to adapt, but we have adapted, and I think it's a wonderful thing. And, we should, I have this great idea of a topic for you and I to talk about, something kind of uplifting and happy-ish when it comes to this. But first, actually, let me say that today's show is obviously taped, so no call-in. But if you want to follow us, please do on our social sites. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and we are at the Health Hub RMC on all three. And feel free to email us at thh@radiomaria.ca if you have any questions, if you want any follow-ups with our guest. Today's guest is outstanding. I think you're really going to really enjoy the conversation and learn quite a bit from Dr. Lee. But I know that I've learned a lot over this last month, and I'm wondering if you have too. Like, for instance, I've learned a lot. I don't really mean to go down a philosophical road, but I've learned a lot, like practically, like if you hang toilet paper where it comes from on top instead of under the bottom, you don't waste as much. Never thought of that before, never really cared. But, as we're getting down to our last rules of toilet paper, and it's still not on the shelves as much. And although it's there, when I need it. And I don't go to the store as often. So it's just, at the beginning of this, we were trying to figure out ways like what happens if we run out of toilet paper. And I found that out. So that was one funny thing. Have you learned anything practically, philosophically from these last few weeks?
Well, if anything, I've learned that I like to bake and cook even more.
You and everybody else. That's one of the things. No flour on the counter, on the shelves. Holy smoke!
I'll tell you. I just recently made some banana bread, and that lasted just like 2 days. I just instantly enjoyed it. And one of the things that I bought from the store a couple weeks ago, Rice Krispie squares. And I thought, why not just get some marshmallows and do it myself? So I've got everything ready in terms of, I bought the Rice Krispies and I've got the marshmallows, everything. Now I just need to find the time before I get to the bottom of my box in terms
cereal
of
bowl,
my cereal bowl. Yeah, because I'm tending now to eat the Rice Krispies as a cereal instead of the real purpose. So I'm going to try and figure that out.
You packing on the COVID-15 there, Alex?
That's so true. The amount of exercise that I need to do too right now, I'm telling you.
I know. That's similar in our house. I found out that my kids can cook. Actually, I posted a picture of my son made his first banana bread, and that was great. My kids know where the vacuum is. Who knew?
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it is nice. But seriously, on another note, I enjoy having my duckies at home. I like having the kids at home.
Yeah.
All the jokes that went around when this first started of who was gonna tap out first. It's nice. It's going to be a time that I'm going to miss in some regards. I mean, I do miss a number of things, obviously, as we all do. But I do like having my kids at home. And you know what? I was just thinking of all the things when I thought about talking about this. So many things came to. I know I'm not ready to be gray. I have gone to all lengths to try and figure out how to cover it. So I do miss my hairdresser more than probably anybody at this point. So I do know that. I found that out. But you know what? I'm really proud to be Canadian. And I have learned that there's no other place on this earth that I would rather live. I think that we have done such an amazing job with this. It's not perfect.
Yeah.
But what is perfect? I just think that everyone has come together well. I'm just proud from top down of everybody.
First Canadians responders and Canadians have done a wonderful job of being, I think, respectful and mindful, and it's really brought out the true meaning of being Canadian, right?
I think it has, and Canadians have been on point. They've been doing what they need to do to protect those who are vulnerable. And this time of uncertainty, we're going to look back. We're going to be a major part of history, and we're going to come out looking great. I'm just really proud. So kudos to everybody who's staying at home and doing what we need to do in these uncertain times. And this is actually a perfect segue into our guest, Dr. William Li. He is... I listened to Dr. Li, his TED Talk, and this is what first brought me to the attention of him. He's an outstanding researcher and doctor. I'll give you a bio in a second. But in talking with him a couple of times, he's a wonderful individual. And you will listen to him and hear that he is coming from such a solid place when we start talking about COVID. Because I think, and the reason why I wanted to have him on the show is because we need truth, and people are getting to this point of being locked up where the mind is starting to wander, and questions are being posed, and what if, is this really that, and all these questions are coming up, and it's not wrong to ask these questions, but I think that through all this we need a voice of knowledge, someone that we can trust, and I think Dr. Li fits the bill. Dr. William Li is a renowned speaker, physician, scientist, and author of the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and Amazon bestseller, Eat to Beat Disease. As CEO and president of the global nonprofit Angiogenesis Foundation, Dr. Lee's work has impacted more than 50 million people worldwide and has led to the effective prevention, novel treatment, and even reversal of disease spanning cancer, chronic wounds, obesity, heart disease, diabetes, and vision loss. An internationally sought-after speaker, Dr. Lee is among an exclusive group of global change makers who have been selected to address the Vatican at its Cellular Horizons and Unite to Cure conferences aimed at improving global health. Dr. Lee has captivated and inspired audiences at Fortune 100 companies, the National Institute of Health, the Milken Institute, and numerous academic, government, corporate, clinical, and general public audiences around the world. His TED Talk, Can We Eat to Starve Cancer, is considered one of the most riveting talks of all time and has been viewed by more than 11 million people. I'm so proud that he accepted my request to be on the show, and I'm humbled that he is with us. And I do really hope that you get as much from this interview as I did. We're going to talk about a number of things, including why COVID-19 is so different from other viruses, how we can take steps to protect ourselves from COVID-19, and what is needed to defeat this virus. So I hope you stay with us. This is a wonderful interview with Dr. Lee, and we will be back right after this short break.
I woke up in darkness, surrounded by silence. So where have I gone? I woke to reality, losing its grip on me. Oh, where have I gone? I can see the light before I see the sunrise. You called and you're shining, broke through my deafness. Now I'm breathing in and breathing out. I'm alive again. You shattered my darkness, washed away my blindness. Now I'm breathing in and breathing out. I'm alive again. Late have I loved you. You waited for me, I searched for you. What took me so long? I was looking outside, as if love would ever want to hide. I'm finding I was wrong, 'cause I can feel the wind before it hits my skin. You called and you're shining, broke through my deafness. Now I'm breathing in and breathing out. I'm alive again.
to Radio Maria Canada. We now continue with the program, The Health Hub, hosted by Kathy Biasi.
Welcome back, everybody. As you know, this show is being taped, so no opportunity to call in and talk to Dr. Lee. But please do follow us on our social sites. We are on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and we are at the Health Hub RMC on all of those platforms. And do feel free to email us at thh@radiomaria.ca if you have any questions about this interview or anything else. Dr. Lee, I don't want to take up too much time because I'm so grateful that you're on the show with us. And I have so many questions that I just want to get straight to it. So welcome to our show.
Well, thank you, Kathy. It's a pleasure to be back and love to talk to you about what's going on.
Great. So we're going to just dive into COVID because this is the topic that people are most curious about. What are you doing with respect to research on the COVID virus?
Right. Well, so I'm an internal medicine doctor, but also a research scientist, and my background in research is really on blood vessels. And it turns out that COVID actually is a blood vessel disease. We know it affects the lungs. We know that it actually affects the whole body. But one of the clues that we're beginning to come to, and by the way, as an internal medicine doctor, I'm fully trained to be involved with intensive care unit training or management, or also emergency room management. So, the in the trenches situation is something I'm quite familiar with. The thing that I'm bringing to the table, though, is really being able to do that deep dive on the research side to understand what's actually happening. Why is this virus causing all these problems? And so that's what I'm really interested in. People who are super sick, including people that might not make it, what actually happened? What's happening at the very end? And then by understanding that, can we then turn the clock back and look at what happens at earlier stages all the way to the point of prevention? And as you know, I'm somebody that is a big proponent of prevention, because ultimately what we want to do is prevent sickness so we don't have to treat it.
So this virus, we've never seen anything like this in our time. What makes this virus so profoundly different from anything else that we have been in contact with?
Right. Well, so look, as humans on planet Earth, we are surrounded by organisms, bacteria, viruses, fungi. The things that we can't see all around us. The air is swarming with stuff. But over, the last 200,000 years, essentially living organisms have gotten used to having these types of germs, as we call them, colloquially, around us. And so our bodies kind of adapt to them, right? That's why dogs don't get sick all the time, cats don't get sick all the time, gorillas don't get sick all the time, and humans don't get sick all the time because we're used to it. What's new about COVID-19 is the fact that it hasn't been seen before by humans. So that's what we call novel coronavirus. By the way, coronavirus is the same kind of virus that a cold comes from. So COVID-19 is closer to a cold than it is to a flu. Flu is caused by the influenza virus. Colds are caused by the coronavirus. Think about COVID-19 like a super, super dangerous cold that can actually kill. And then, so when you hear that it's the same, they're not even related, actually. So that's an important point, because we do have vaccines for the flu. We don't really have vaccines for the cold. And that's going to be one of the challenges that lie ahead, is how are we going to develop a vaccine for a group of viruses that we've never developed a vaccine for.
So I've never heard that. Of all the information and all of the news that's coming, I've never heard that it's more related to a cold than the flu. Because what we're seeing now, and I think this is probably human nature, we've been locked down. And I think now, we're starting to see demonstrations. We're starting to see people push back. And I think what's important is that we need to split apart the fake news from the real news. And, we're seeing comparisons with SARS. We're seeing comparisons to the influenza. But I have never heard it being compared to a cold. So is this a virus? Is this a type of virus that the immune system can fight off? We're seeing all these things about protect your immune system, strengthen your immune system. And then we're seeing other doctors saying it's not the immune system that's the issue here. What give us the best scenario for fighting off this disease.
Right. The best scenario for fighting off this disease is going to be a vaccine, which there are people developing vaccines. It takes time to develop a vaccine. Think about vaccine like making a cake. You just can't throw a bunch of ingredients together and ta-da, it's ready. You got to mix it. You got to let it rise. You got to put it in the oven. And that's basically what this excruciating time that we're waiting for is to figure out, is to sort of wait for the vaccine. That's a cow on the hill to help save us, because like smallpox, like typhoid, like polio, when we actually have a vaccine, everybody's going to breathe a vaccine that works. Everybody's going to breathe a huge sigh of relief. That's going to be a while, because it just takes time. They talk about 12 to 18 months. The world speed record for developing vaccines is longer than that. So we have to beat, human records in order to be able to have the vaccine sooner than later. But the vaccine is, number one, the most definitive way out. The second thing that's going to make us feel more comfortable is when we find effective treatments. And you hear about these all kinds of drugs that are out there. And it's hard to know when you talk about fake news. There's one thing worse than fake news, which is partially true news. Mm-hmm. So, because if it's fake, you could just throw it away. But if it's partially true, then you don't know how to separate the parts that might be real versus the parts that are false. And what I would kind of encourage your listeners to know is that there are well over 900 clinical trials going on. These are human tests looking at different ways to tackle the COVID-19 virus using different types of medicines, including vaccines, drugs, new drugs, old drugs. I mean, we are diving at this thing like never before in human history. One of these 900 tests, and probably more than one, is going to come through for us, and we'll find something that's going to help stop this thing in its tracks and prevent us from actually getting super sick. One of the important things for people to realize, though, is that rather than actually simply have a cure, we're probably, just like cancer, not going to find a magic bullet. There's not going to be no penicillin that's going to knock this thing out. This is a complicated virus, complicated infection. It's probably going to be a whole bunch of different things that we're going to combine together. So we have to have a little bit of patience while that is actually all coming together. But the best treatment, the best way to deal, the optimal solution is to avoid getting infected in the first place.
Where does that leave us? Staying in our homes?
Well, so that's what's interesting, right? Right now, we are kind of what I say medieval in our approach.
Yes.
If you compare this to the plague of the Middle Ages, what did people do back then? They ran and hid inside their stone houses, huddled together, waiting for the town crier to say it's safe to go back out into the square again. It's kind of like what we're doing right now. We're not that different. And I think this is the reality we need to realize. We cannot hide forever. We have to be able to move forward to be able to regain our lives. And that's what everybody wants to know, is when can we get back to, our lives again? And I think this is where this testing thing comes into play. Because, number one, not everybody who gets infected gets sick. Not everybody who gets sick dies. Okay, many people actually get infected and actually are perfectly fine, or they might get a little sick and they just kind of bounce back to health. And, and that's kind of like where it's like a cold, right? And most people, It's very easy to catch a cold. Most people don't get seriously ill. Some people actually do. And what we want to be able to do is to prevent people that are most vulnerable from actually getting sick and doing really poorly. So testing allows us to know who's infected and who needs to be kind of moved to a safe place so that they can get over their sickness securely and be supported. And that will prevent other people from actually becoming exposed to that sick person. So that's the whole idea of quarantining, separating the people who need more attention from the people who are not infected. That requires testing. When we have adequate testing and we've got a system in place to be able to manage that, and Germany is a great example of a country. Germany and South Korea are examples of great countries that have great systems that have been put into place or are being put into place. And I think we're a global society now. Humans are. We should look to our neighbors and people that, you know, our fellow humans, to see who's got a system in place that we can emulate, or we can try to put to work in our own communities. So testing, infrastructure, being able to take care of people who have been infected and moving them into a safe place so that they can recover safely and prevent other people from getting sick. And then we need treatments, and lots of treatments are being tested, and sooner or later we'll find one or more. And then the vaccine. All this is actually happening in the background. So while everybody is, you know, these are the messages that need to be sent out, is that there are things that are actually happening that people can feel confident that progress is being made. It's never fast enough, but but the medical community is working on it.
And there's a whole group, and we've had a short discussion. It's so hard to know how to look at this thing clearly, because we can definitely see the pattern here in Canada. It's not the vast majority. A large sector, of course, is in the old age homes that have been greatly impacted here, and then you have the ones that have recovered, and then there are those of us. I don't know if I have been exposed, if I have immunity to it, and then we don't know if immunity is actually an issue, and we're at home here. What is our next step? Like, are we going to all be tested? And, you've got this whole thing about a vaccine coming, and I know people are starting to get up in arms, because I was just reading an article today. In Canada, half the people don't think that mandatory vaccines are ethical or should be mandated to us. So we got a lot of issues going on here, and a lot of us don't know which way to move.
Right. Well, okay. So this then gets back to something really basic about not getting infected. And if we all had really good immune systems, with good immune systems, we're probably not going to get sick, even when we get infected. So here's what we know about how this virus works. This is a respiratory virus, which means it gets transmitted by air. We breathe it in order to get infected. That's why actually wearing a mask is helpful, because we can breathe it in, we can breathe it out as well. And it's in our aerosolized particles. There was a new study that came out yesterday that showed that actually the particles, the virus, can be even carried in air pollution over large areas. And so the masks are definitely to keep other people safe, but probably to keep yourself safe as well. And if everybody wore a mask, we'd be protecting each other from each other and ourselves. And so it just, I think that's one thing that's probably going to be here for a while. So I think we should get used to a new fashion.
Really? Okay.
Secondly is that if we had a good, strong immune system, we might be able to fight off the virus. When we breathe in a virus, how does it infect us? It goes in our nose, and it attaches to the mucus in our nose. So when you blow your nose, you're blowing out the mucus. That mucus is always in our nose and everybody, and just like a cold. And that's where it starts to get into the body. And if you have a strong immune system, the battle is fought right there in your nose. And if you get a strong immune system, you could probably wipe out and get rid of the virus right there and then, and kind of game over for the virus. You just keep on moving on with your life. If your immune system, which is why it's so important to have a strong immune system, if you have a weakened immune system, there's lots of reasons that people's immunities can go down. Diabetes, being elderly, being on different kinds of medications, cancer patients, who are being treated. Being overweight is also a risk factor, it looks like. We're trying to, there's lots of different factors that can actually lower immunity, and malnutrition. You could be surrounded by food and not eating enough food, enough of the micronutrients to support your immune system. All those things weaken your immune system. If your immune system is weak, that virus will get into your nose, infect your nose. It'll start to make more of itself, right? That's how infections occur. And then the virus is sneaky. It'll actually go down your nose, through your throat, and go into your lungs. Okay? So think about if you were to, choke on, drinking some water. Mm-hmm. That's the water going into your lung. That's like the virus going from, your upper part of your aerodigestive system, which is your mouth or nose, getting into your lungs. And then the virus, once it gets to your lungs, does something really sneaky. And this is what we're learning. It gets into your blood vessels. The lung is full of air sacs, like think about the bubble wrap, the bubble wrap for packing. Mm-hmm. That's what the lung is like, filled with these little bubbles, which are the air that we breathe in. And around the bubbles are blood vessels that actually allow oxygen to get from the air bubble into your body. And then it removes and it takes the carbon dioxide so you can breathe it out. So we know, we're beginning to find out the virus actually goes from the lung tissue, those air bubbles, into the blood vessels, and they inflame, and it causes inflammation in the blood vessels. Still have a chance to fight it off there if you've got good immunity, but if you can't get rid of enough of the virus there, then you get into trouble. And that trouble occurs when the virus gets it crowds out your lung basically by growing so much. It becomes like this rioting mass in your lungs, and it causes huge amounts of inflammation. And the inflammation that get people super, super sick. So sick they got to go to the hospital, so sick that they might need to be supported on a ventilator, artificial breathing, right? That is a situation where it's the body trying to nuke the virus to try to get rid of it. So we should all try to avoid getting to that state. And that's where having good defenses up front, good immunity up front, right at the nose level, actually, is really important for us. And that's, another area that I'm studying is really, how can we use diet and food to actually help support our immunity. So our immune system is one of our body's 5 health defense systems that I wrote about in my book, Eat to Beat Disease. And what we want to do is be able to use food to boost and bolster shore up our defenses, and the immune system is one of the most important.
Excellent. I think we're going to take a quick break here, because then we can come back and start talking about nutrition and food, and it'll lead us right into a whole bunch of other questions I have for you. So everybody, we will be back in a few minutes.
Screaming, bare feet hit the floor. Yeah, it's off to the races, everybody out the door. I'm feeling like I'm falling behind. It's a crazy life. 90 miles an hour, going fast as I can, trying to push a little harder, trying to get the upper hand. So much to do in so little time. It's a crazy life. It's ready, set, go. It's another wild day when the stress is on the rise. In my heart I feel you say, just breathe, just breathe. Come and rest at my feet and be, just be. Chaos calls, but all you really need is to just breathe. Third cup of Joe just to get me through the day. Wanna make the most of time, but I feel it slip away. I wonder if there's something more to this crazy life. I'm busy, 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 and it's no surprise to see that I only have time for me, me, me. There's gotta be something more to this crazy life. I'm hanging on tight to another wild day when it starts to fall apart. In my heart I hear you say, just breathe, just breathe. Come and rest at my feet and be, just be. Chaos calls, but all you really need is to take it in, fill your lungs, the peace of God that overcomes. Just breathe. Let your weary spirit rest. Lay down what's good and find what's best. Just breathe.
You are listening to The Health Hub here on Radio Maria Canada, a Catholic voice wherever you are. To contact us and be a part of the show, email thh@radiomaria.ca. We now continue with the program. Here once again is your host, Kathy Biasi.
Welcome back, everybody. We're having a fascinating conversation here with Dr. William Li. Let's just continue right on where we left off. We started talking about, and this is what actually, your TED Talk fascinated me. I work with cancer patients. I was a cancer patient myself, and I saw your TED Talk, and it speaks to everybody, and it's not just a talk for cancer patients for sure. And it's all about the immunity. And I think we've left off at a great spot, and we're going to pick right up in that area. How do we build up our immune system to fight off this virus?
Well, our immune system is something that even our grandmothers actually told us were important. So this is something that kids know. You got to have strong immunity. You're not going to get sick. And, the thing that everybody hears about as a kid is, have your chicken soup or, whatever it is. Dress warmly. Turns out that we're all born with a super strong immune system because from the moment we actually exit mom's womb, we're exposed to this strange new world that's filled with bacteria and viruses. And so our immune system really goes to town right away. And what's interesting about the immune system that we're beginning to realize is that it is a defense system, and it knows how to recognize the bad guys from the good guys. And by that I mean that there's good bacteria as well as bad bacteria, so good germs and bad germs. The good ones we now know are healthy gut bacteria, or microbiome that people might have heard about.
They have. They've heard lots about it.
Yeah, so when we're born, we actually want to grow our microbiome in a healthy gut bacteria sort of way, which, by the way, our gut and our immune system are interconnected, which is how food and immunity get connected. So it turns out we've got about 39 trillion bacteria in our body. We have slightly more bacteria than we have human cells. So it's like 37 trillion human cells. So it's 1-to-1. We're kind of an ecosystem. Think about us like the Great Barrier Reef, okay? And we've got 39 trillion bacteria, and they all live, and most of them live inside our gut. Our gut is like a garden hose, a big one, and at the tail end of the garden hose, which is sort of in our colons, that's where most of the gut bacteria are growing. And when I went to medical school, we were taught that the immune system was actually like in your spleen and your thymus and your lymph nodes and all that kind of stuff. Turns out that 70% of our immune system's in our gut. This is like how, even for medicine, we're beginning to discover new things about ourselves. That's one wonderful thing I think about research, is that we're learning new things about ourselves all the time. So think about if you cut a garden hose in half and you look at it head on. It's got a wall that's the thickness of the hose. Now imagine if that hose was like a jelly roll, and it was like a little layer of jelly inside that garden hose. If you cut open a jelly roll, it turns out that, and so think about the garden hose. The bacteria is inside the hose, and inside the wall, the jelly roll is your immune system, and that's where 70% of our immune system is actually inside the wall of our gut, our garden hose, and the bacteria, the good healthy gut bacteria, talk to the immune system and help the direct immune system to do what it's supposed to do, which is to protect us. What we eat can actually affect our gut bacteria, our microbiome, which then helps to enhance our immunity. So eating foods that are good for our gut bacteria, like fermented foods, probiotic foods, foods with fiber, dietary fiber, really help grow that good bacteria, which is good for our immunity. Now, we also know that there are some foods specifically that help the immunity. So foods with vitamin C help the immune system. There's plenty of vitamin C foods like citrus fruits, strawberries. Most people don't know that guava, which is a delicious tropical food, is like super packed with vitamin C. Vitamin D is also important for the immune system, besides what you can get in milk, which, by the way, most people may not know that vitamin D is fortified in milk, which means that before the milk is bottled and they screw the cap on, they squirt a little bit of vitamin D in it. But where do you get natural vitamin D is in mushrooms. Mushrooms not only have fiber, but they also naturally have vitamin D. And I'm researching this now as well as myself. And it turns out that if you leave mushrooms out in the sunlight, kind of like on a kitchen counter with sunlight, that sunlight actually concentrates the vitamin D. So you can even get more if you leave the mushrooms out a little bit. Also concentrates their flavor, makes them taste a little bit better. Zinc is another good nutrient. So things like spinach and leafy greens actually have that zinc. But then there's also these boosters. So there's been human studies showing the berries, like blackberries and blueberries, can actually enhance your immune system. Sprouts, like broccoli sprouts, actually can also amp up your immune system. Certain drinks, like cranberry juice, increases the antibodies in our saliva, which are protecting us, in our mucous membranes too, like in our nose. Like I told you about the bacteria fighting us. Cranberry juice actually helps to increase the soldiers that are patrolling in our mucous membrane in our nose, which can be helpful as well. And pomegranate juice is also really good for the gut bacteria, helps the gut bacteria grow, the kind of gut bacteria that communicates with the immune system. And so there's a whole series of things that we can do at home every day. When we get out of the kitchen, open up the fridge, or take a look around, we are making mindful decisions of what we can actually do to help support our immunity. And I encourage your listeners, when they're going to the grocery store or the market, don't just get frozen food, don't just get meat. Go to the produce section and look for some of these fresh items, because they are likely be the ones that are actually going to help contribute to our immunity. And other things besides that your listeners can do that I want to really communicate is, besides eating well, sleep. Getting good sleep is super important for our immunity. And our immune system, by the way, operates even better at lower temperatures. So 67 degrees Fahrenheit is about the temperature that our immune system loves to have to be strong. Immune system is kind of rebooted at night. And so slightly cooler temperatures actually helps the immune system, and good sleep helps the immune system. Stress is bad for the immune system, and physical activity actually helps to lower the feelings of stress. So think about it. The rules haven't changed for being healthy. Move, sleep, and eat healthy. Oh, one last thing I did mention about eating: don't eat too much. Don't overindulge. Don't stuff yourself. Because it turns out that having slightly less calories actually helps your immune system stay lean and mean, kind of ready to rock. When you actually really flood the system with calories, the immune system, like the rest of your body, kind of gets sluggish. And so, trying to go for some caloric limitation, choosing plant-based foods, mostly fruits and vegetables, legumes, and nuts. Feed your immune system, help your gut microbiome, which controls your immunity, getting enough sleep and getting exercise. These are some basic things that we don't need a vaccine to do. We don't need a doctor's prescription for. And even a few inches of protection that we can give ourselves is going to make a big difference if it actually keeps us well.
I guess masks are going to be coming in vogue, like you said. Now, a couple of things. I mean, people are, and I'm in this group as well. I mean, I've had trouble sleeping. And stress is a part of what's going on here. So exercising is a key piece to everything. And I've heard people being anxious going outside. I mean, it's so hard. Let's just sort of flip the table here, because I know we have a few minutes left, and there are a couple of questions that have been proposed to me that I would like to hit you with. A second wave of this, do you foresee it? Is this what the research is telling? And will it be a stronger influx of it, if that's the right word?
Yeah, nobody really knows, because this is, again, it's novel, never been seen before in human history virus. But what we can do is to refer back to the kind of viruses it is, a coronavirus. And these things tend to come and go, wax and wane with seasons, like we see with the cold or with the flu. This is just sort of like a really bad version of those cyclical, come and go types of illnesses. So we're expecting that it may be back in the winter, like late fall, early winter, and last, because all these other infections tend to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. We could be surprised, like SARS kind of burned itself out. Yeah. And so hopefully, this COVID-19, if we're really lucky, will just kind of, delete itself out of existence. And that would be the best case scenario, is that, like, we had this terrible experience and then it somehow just exits, and we may never know what happened. But most likely, I think, to be protective, we're thinking that it's likely to stick around, but come back. So, but coming back is really a little bit of a misnomer. These viruses never really go away. It's just that the concentration, the density of the virus, the risk goes way down. Now, if we don't actually take good care as a community, as a population, as a city, or in our communities, in our towns, and we are careless and start to do risky behaviors, the cases will increase, and people will get sick, and people will die, and we'll see that right away. And
risky meaning not social distancing.
By the way, the whole idea, we're trying to get away from the word social distancing, because we're not really trying to make people antisocial. It's really physical distancing, right?
Yeah.
So we want to be social. We just can't be that close at the moment. This is where wearing masks, everybody wore a mask, I can't give you mine and you can't give me yours. Mm-hmm. And so both people are safe, safer. I think behavior would be like not wearing masks, not saying large gatherings are going to be risky. I know restaurants want to open up. I know that people want to gather. It's human nature. We want to be together. We're kind of tribal. We're a tribal species. It's very difficult for us to stay isolated. So I totally understand that. But at this moment, until we have more clues on how to treat and how to prevent, if we get a whole bunch of people together, it's gonna come back and it's gonna explode. So that's another kind of coming back, is actually if we trigger the resurgence of this. Is it going to be worse? Is it going to mutate? Fortunately, so far, and it's been going on 4+ months so far, this virus has not mutated to the extent that it's become even more deadly or more dangerous. Like, that would be the worst case scenario. This thing decides to shapeshift into an even nastier beast. Mutation can work two ways. Either it gets worse, mm-hmm. or it actually gets better. If it mutates to get better, maybe that's what will make it go away. So, but so far it's been pretty stable. The vaccines are all mostly being developed against a signature on the virus. It's called coronavirus because it looks like it has a crown, like a king's crown. And the crown, like a king's crown, has spikes on it. And that's how it attaches into our human cells. The virus sticks its spikes in, kind of like a crampon for ice climbing, into our cells. And so the vaccines are being developed against the spike protein. So far, that's been pretty stable. We hope that it stays stable, because that means the vaccines we're developing are likely going to stay working. Once we prove that it works, we can keep on using the same one. But I think that nobody really, really knows if it's going to come back, but we think if it behaves like other viruses, it probably would be around all the time in the background, less in the summer, more in the cold weather period. But, those are generalization because, Australia is, and South America is also suffering, and it's summertime there now. Mm-hmm. So, so it's not simply temperature. This is new. I was talking to a colleague of mine yesterday, and I was saying that, in a way, this is like being invaded by aliens from space, something that we, don't really know how to deal with. We're going to throw everything we got, every ounce of ingenuity and technology that humans have to try to figure this thing out. And, people are pretty smart. I think humankind is pretty smart. So I'm optimistic that this thing is not going to be as bad as we as it could be, that we might imagine in our worst case scenario. I'm hopeful that, nature tends to get rid of really bad things because they don't have a host to go to. They kill everything in their path. Humans are pretty smart. I think we'll come up with one or more treatments, and the vaccine really is going to save the day, because just like polio, smallpox, typhoid, diphtheria, we sometimes forget those were the illnesses used to wipe out like huge communities all at once. We don't even think twice about them anymore. So when we actually have and because we have a vaccine, and we get them when we're kids, and so when the day comes where we have a vaccine against this, I think it'll be a gigantic closing of this chapter, and we can act. That's when we can truly get back to our lives.
It's been a fascinating conversation. We talked a little bit about the stress and the exercise, and, we need people like you to continue giving us the clear information, because I think that's a lot of the stress that we alluded to is the not knowing. It's so important to have people like you coming forward all the time with well-researched information that we can sink our teeth into. And I really, really do appreciate you coming on our show today. I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of such a profoundly busy schedule of yours. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Everybody, we will talk to you next week on The Health Hub.
You have been listening to The Health Hub, hosted by